Hey, I'm James. Welcome to Alternate Sides, a podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship. Today we're talking about Hal Ashby's road movie, The Last Detail, starring Jack Nicholson, Otis Young, and a very young Randy Quaid. It's a simple movie in many ways, the kind of movie that doesn't get made much anymore. Our three main characters are in the Navy. Nicholson and Young are being forced to transport the hapless Quaid to prison for the terrible crime of having stolen $40 from a charity box. In this one, we don't talk that much about the movie itself in terms of plot and making of it and so on, and more about the acting, the style of this kind of movie, about whether Jack Nicholson is really one of the greatest actors of all time or not. We also talk about Frank Sinatra, Flash Gordon, and an opium dealer named Mr. Raisin. Here we go. Whoa!
Hello.
Yeah, all right, mate.
All right, I'm on Dean Street. I'm on my not my block, but close, fairly close. I'm on Dean. I'm about to get. What is it when the person rear ends you? Front ended, I guess. By a big Verizon truck. I don't know what he's
They're going to
doing
back
now.
into your front bumper, you're saying?
Indeed, the beeping is on. Ooh, very close. Yeah. Okay, he stopped.
So listen, two bits of follow-up from our last talk. One is, both my sisters were kind enough to listen to the last one of these that we did, and I'm guess pleased to say that they were both very upset by my talk of killing myself if I had a loaded gun in the house. So
Okay.
I just wanted to walk that back a little bit, or provide more context. You know, it's not as though I'm suicidal, and I wouldn't want anyone to think that I had plans or thoughts, or even, it's not even like I would be better off dead. It's more like the crushing weight of the futility of human existence, that if you could somehow turn off the whole simulation and almost never have existed in the first place, then it would save so much trouble.
Right. I guess I was going to say, does it make me callous that I wasn't concerned about your having a loaded gun and shooting yourself? I think I would liken it to, I've definitely had hangovers where if someone said you can push a button and just not exist anymore, I would 100% have pushed the button. No pain, just check it out. See you later. Definitely. Some bad ones.
Being better off never having been born reminds me of a poem that an English professor of mine wrote called "The Man Who Never Heard of Frank Sinatra," and I'll tell it to you right now.
Cool, man.
"The Man Who Never Heard of Frank Sinatra" by Aaron Fogel. The man who never heard of Frank Sinatra. He lived a perfectly ordinary life in America. Born in 1915, he followed all the fads, read the newspapers, listened to television, knew who Dean Martin and Sammy What's-His-Name were, Sinatra's friends. But somehow, by a one in a zillion fluke, whenever Sinatra came up, he was out of the room. Or his attention was diverted by something else. And you will say this is impossible, that it cannot be. Never heard him sing, like a man in my generation who somehow missed the Beatles, though he had heard everything else. Once, just as he was about to hear the name Frank Sinatra, a plane flew overhead. He was 55 years old, his hearing a little more impaired. He had heard of Humphrey Bogart, of Elizabeth Taylor, of Walter Cronkite, and of perhaps 140,000 other celebrity names by the time he died. And yet he had never heard of Frank Sinatra. The Greeks had that famous saying, "The luckiest man is he who was never born," which is kind of gloomy, but I think they were wrong. The luckiest man is he who never heard of Frank Sinatra.
That's very good.
It's very good, and I happen to agree that most of Sinatra is trash, but we can leave that to another time. Okay, so that's follow-up number one. Let's get right to the case here. Follow-up number two is an apology. I have to apologize, and this
a lot of business here.
Well, follow-up number two has subcategory A and subcategory B. Subcategory A is Amarcord, the Fellini movie we were talking about. was actually 1973 and not 1974. So it's a good thing we didn't pick it for.
Good thing, because the one we did pick.
Yes, so that's subset B. Is that yes? The last detail also is 1973, not 1974.
So we really fucked it.
So I apologize. I apologize for that, but it won't happen again. I'm a man who's on a journey of development and discovery. And also, I have to say in my defense that the movie came out in the second half of December 1973. So I'm sure that many of the people who saw it upon release saw it in 1974.
You know, I was born in 1975, and I always thought that as I was growing up, two of the, I guess, works of art that really like made a huge impact on me, like just sort of those kind of yardsticks, I guess, were from 1975.
Let me guess.
One was, go on.
Keith Jarrett, The Cone Concert.
Correct.
And Woody Allen, Annie Hall.
Fucking hell, you do know me well.
Very good.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those two, like when I was growing up, those were both on repeat, like in my house as a kid. And I always wondered, like, is there something to that they're both from the year I was born? But it's possible that the Cone Concert, I guess, I don't actually know. Was it recorded in 75? I think it was. But probably Annie Hall wasn't made in 75. I don't know. I guess we'll get to it.
I was actually looking at when I don't want to get ahead of myself, but movies from 1975. What a hell of a year. Here are movies from 75 which I've already seen, so these won't be part of our possible movies for next time. But Jaws, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Barry Lyndon, Dog Day Afternoon, 3 Days of the Condor, The Mirror, Nashville, Picnic at Hanging Rock, Love and Death, French Connection 2. That's an amazing. I mean, that's crazy that those all came out in 1975. Yeah.
That brings us, I think, nicely into the last detail, because it's part of what was, which also I was wrong. I'd never seen it. I'd seen scenes from it, I guess, and I knew about it somehow, but I don't think I'd ever seen it start to finish. But it immediately gave me that nostalgia for the kind of movie that you're just reeling off. It's very different than those movies, but like that time period is so specific in American movies, and this is so clearly of that time period.
It reminded me of Scarecrow a little bit, and of, although it's a very different movie, Mikey and Nicky, and it's just kind of a movie about guys, whatever. But so Randy, the very young Randy Quaid, has basically been stitched up for a shoplifting job. They're all in the Navy, and he has to go to prison. And so Jack Nicholson and another guy are charged with transporting him from Virginia to New Hampshire over the course of a week. And they get up to all kinds of hijinks. It's very slow by our standards today. And actually not very much happens. And yet, over the course of the movie, you really get to know them and you settle in, and it becomes, I could have watched another hour easily.
Yeah.
With that.
Well, it probably like all good road movies, it starts out slow and picks up speed, right? So the beginning, it did feel to me like, this is nice. The setup is, because the whole movie is just about these guys. It's just about characters, not about what happens. And even the resolution is so simple and beautifully done, like really. Yeah,
they deliver him, and he's kind of led off without a word. It happens in like.
But the shot from the top of from the bottom of the staircase to the jail bars, and then from the top of the staircase, looking down at them, just looking up, and you can see that they don't like what they're doing.
It's a terrible moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's simple. It's not like, it's not played for anything other than shit, we got to do this.
Well, if you were going to do that movie now, you'd have to add in, that they're on the run from the mob as well, or that there's some, that somebody, gets killed. He tries to escape at the end. Jack Nicholson has to shoot him or whatever.
Yeah.
I laughed very hard at the moment where they have this insane night of drinking.
The beds
in the hotel, and then they try and get the cots.
Well, I love that Nicholson said Otis Young says, we gotta figure it out. Like, where's everyone sleeping? And Nicholson's like, who cares? And I love that, because it's so, I think that a lot of people would care.
I would care.
You would definitely care.
I would
where
absolutely
you're
care. Well, we would have sorted that out before at the second we walked in the room.
But the fact that
But why
Nicholson
is
goes,
that
who
bad?
cares?
I don't know that that's bad. We should know whose bed is whose. Where are you sleeping tonight? I find it baffling that anyone could go through the night honestly not caring.
Right, but that makes you the uptight one in that scene, right? And Nicholson's
It's uptight, is it?
there's the definition of uptight. Well, I gotta know in advance where I'm gonna fucking sleep. Yeah, right. You're just getting shit faced and you're getting on a train in the morning. Who cares? But then when they open the beds and the beds are so shit, then it is kind of hilarious. Like, do you care now? And it's just like the one which is like a moon rest.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I don't remember seeing Nicholson do physical comedy like that.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
I don't think it's uptight to want to know which bed you're going to have at the end
of
the night.
100% uptight. 100%. Yeah, what is it? What's wrong with you?
Well, you always, I mean, you are the opposite. You're the guy who's like, yeah, I don't care. And also like, it's a house for 10 people and suddenly we're going to be 13 people. Yeah, no big deal. Come in, we'll figure it out. Whatever. It's all
we had a family trip to LA when I was probably 12, I guess. It was like a big trip. We were going to LA, we were going to Disneyland and like whatever. And we stayed at my mum's cousin's house, who is this very famous violinist, Iranian violinist. He had a nice house. It must have been between 40 and 60 of us in this house. In our bedroom, in the kids' room, there were 9 of us sleeping every night in the kids' room. And it included, so the kids' room also included my grandmother. Like, there were 9 of us with my grandmother. There were 3 of us who slept on the floor, me and my cousin, and our neighbor came along too, Amina. And we slept on the floor. And then the 4 younger kids, 4 or 5 younger cousins, all slept crossways on the double bed. Mm-hmm. Like, and then on the other side of the bed, there were 2 more. And then my grandmother at the foot of the bed. And my grandmother would do this funny, like, snort, like this weird like thing. And so all of us would just crack up the whole night. But my grandmother was the only one who would sleep because we were kids and we would stay up late and she would go to sleep. But there was one guy who would sleep in the bathtub. He slept in the bathtub. His name was Kishmishi, Mr. Raisin.
Mr. Raisin, like the thing you eat?
Yeah, kishmish is a raisin. And so it was only actually this last 2 weeks ago when I was in Seattle. I was talking to my uncle. And I was like, why were we all in that? And now, Kishmishi had a house in LA. And he chose, instead of going back to his house, because it was so fun in our house, instead of going to his house, he would stay and sleep. One night he slept in the Mercedes in the garage. I remember that. Anyway, it turns out that Alay Kishmishi wasn't really allowed to leave because he was the guy who prepared the opium pipe for the grandparents. I didn't know this at the time. So there's also this, like, there were 3 generations, right? It was us, my parents' generation, and then the grandparents. My mom's dad was like, he liked a bit of opium, like the old guys did in Iran. His brother was, he was like 80-something years old. He would only eat raw. And he could insist that everyone should eat raw. He said this is the key. And so he was constantly climbing the trees in LA. He was like 80 years old, climbing the trees in LA. And you'd say, well, where's Amoujan Pasteur? And he'd be up on the tree picking plums and eating plums. And then come down and do a bit of opium, I guess. The thing is, like, in Iran, it was traditional. So you'd have, let's say, after the big lunch, the big meal in Iran is lunch, right? So you'd have your big lunch. And you'd go to, like, if you're at people's houses, let's say on the weekend, you'd go and have a big meal. And then they would lay out in the living room, they just lay out blankets for everyone. And after lunch, everyone would just lie down next to each other, like, 12 of you, lie down in the living room and just take a nap for an hour or 2.
Now, I could get into that. Loving that. Not for an hour or 2, but a nice 20 minutes.
No, they weren't into power naps. They were fucking out for the count.
I don't, when I stayed at your place once when your parents were in town and I had to sleep in the same room as your parents and I did not sleep a wink. Yeah. It was so awkward for me.
That's so hilarious.
To be 10 feet from your sleeping parents all night just was.
That's really hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes the traffic warden. He's not going to make me move, is he? Let's see. Let's see what he says. He's 2 cars up. He's given a ticket. He will brook no objections. Here's there's an Alfa Romeo. He's all right with them. He's got a neon green NYPD hat. He's coming in for me now. I'll give him a wave. He's all right with me. All right, mate. He's fine.
So was there somebody in the Alfa Romeo then, I guess?
Yeah.
Oh,
I actually, yeah, we waved. We're good. I'm good.
So this is why you have to sit in the car, because if you weren't there right now, that's $68.
Right now, that's 68 beans right there.
Yeah. I guess you have to decide whether your time is worth $68 an hour.
Ooh, someone has decided that for me long ago.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know, and I'm sure we'll get to it when we get to Scarface or some other Pacino movie, but I would put to you that if you never hearing of Frank Sinatra, if you had never heard of Al Pacino and you could only watch Al Pacino movies that's from 1995, let's say on, you would not think that Al Pacino is a great actor. And the second is like unto it, which is to say that the same thing of Jack Nicholson. I mean, I guess there's As Good as It Gets, which of course I haven't seen. So I was on the Wikipedia and I happened to get to Jack Nicholson's page there, and it says he's widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of all time. And I thought, is he? Like, I love Jack Nicholson, but is he really? Is it the acting that has made him? He's a star. He's a big star. And I was skeptical. And then I started watching the movie, and then I was like, he's very charismatic. He's magnetic somehow. And I don't even know what it is. And it made me want to ask you, like, since your wife is an actor and you're a director, what does it mean to be a good actor? Like, in my mind, like, okay, Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, like, anyone can see that that's an impressive feat of acting, because he's being a very specific incarnation of a person who's very far from himself. And technically, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot or whatever, or even Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln. Oh my God, the transformation of his voice and the body language. But Jack Nicholson isn't doing any of that stuff.
Right. That's like the difference between, Vladimir Horowitz on the piano versus Monk on the piano. Right. Like, they're both geniuses, but they're doing very different things. The thing about Jack Nicholson to me is that,
well, Monk, I just want to say as a side note, like, is entirely sui generis and one of a kind. Like, there's no reason why he should be. He's a terrible piano player. Like, from a technical point of view, his fingers are all flat. He's hammering the keys. He's hitting all kinds of clams and duff notes and everything. And yet it is genius, and it's incredibly cerebral in a certain way. Yeah. I don't know. Monk is a very strange character. But anyway, but
there's no one. So the thing about people like Nicholson, I think like Brando before him, like there was no one like him before him on the screen. Jack Nicholson was a totally new version of a film actor. And so when he comes out, like, and that's very different if you think in the 70s about like De Niro, who in the 70s is much more in the line of what you're describing, the Hoffman, De Niro, kind of the incredible, like, devoted, dedicated performance. But he is not, you don't get the sense of Robert De Niro through those movies. You get the sense of Travis Bickle or Jake LaMotta or whoever he wants you to identify as this person. With Jack Nicholson, you always get Jack Nicholson. And with Brando, too, you always got Brando. For people like Brando and Nicholson, the beauty was that they were the most interesting people in the room. And I think by being that rich, as human beings, that comes across, that glow comes across.
But so this is sort of like being these are the movie stars. I mean, I would say Harrison Ford is not a great actor. I would say.
No, that's almost a different thing, though.
Or Redford.
That's a glow that is alchemy, that the camera somehow loves you. It's about proportion and it's about, I don't know, it's something that's mystical. What like some people just have this thing that comes across, and even when you see them in real life,
It's a burden,
often,
Sam. Trust me, it's
I'm
it is a
sure.
burden.
Yeah,
One thought I did have actually about this movie is how would this movie be different if it with Hackman, 1973 Hackman instead of Nicholson? Because I think he could do it. Military man, little gruff, gets into bar fights.
definitely. Hackman was amazing. There's another guy who, like, he was always good. He's like the actor's actor, I feel
But
like.
that's the thing, because he also, to me, is doing I mean, in a sense, Gene Hackman is always being Gene Hackman. He's not one of these chameleons, but he's never not incredible in a movie. I feel like I would watch anything with him in it. And
Every movie is better for having Gene Hackman in it. No question.
so, but what is that? Is that because he's a great actor?
Well, I think yes, yeah, of course. It's because he's a great actor. But I think what is that thing that makes him so great? It's a vulnerability. It's a commitment, and it's deep work, right? It's not surface work.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you get the whole real thing. If you see someone do a shit version, Altman always said this, you learn more from watching people do things badly than from people do things well. Like if you watch the shit actor, they signpost, it's all surface. It's not you don't believe it.
But that's the older, that's sort of the pre-Brando, right? So like Olivier.
Well, no, that's a different thing. That's style. What we considered realistic acting changed right after Brando. But I think ever since Brando, there's been like an acknowledgement that we could try to get closer and closer to what does this really look like, human behavior. Like one of the greats of that was Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was always digging for the detail, digging for the thing that brings this to life. But also it feels like those movies were about that. The movie like The Last Detail is concerned, and Town's script as well, it's concerned with these questions of like, what does this really look like? The moment when they open the mom's door and see what's in there, and then the kid's like, what would I really said to her anyway? It's just like an alcoholic den.
Yeah, just a mess. Bottles everywhere, unmade couch, obviously sleeping on the sofa, trash. But that too is like so quietly done, and all the more impactful for that. They open the door and you just get a shot of the room.
Yeah.
And then you get a reverse shot of them. And
that's all
nobody
you
really
need.
says anything.
Yeah.
It's all in the face, I guess. And then he says, well, I don't know what I would have told her anyway. And then you move on. But yeah, that's a very powerful moment.
I guess the things that make me a little sad watching that movie, more broadly speaking, is that I think we've lost the room, the cultural space for movies like that, which, like you say, not much happens, but everything happens. It's about these human beings. It's beautiful, like that relationship. Nicholson's attempts constantly to like, in a way, to help this guy out. He wants to like show him a good time, and but Otis Young's right that it's just going to make it harder.
Mm-hmm.
But their knowledge that he's going to get eaten up in prison, it's very sad. But to me, these are always like the concerns that are worth making a movie about. Like, what is the old Cassavetes line about? Like, in my life, I've never known anyone who's murdered. But like, why does every movie have to be about that? I know that it happens, but the things in my life that I worry about are, am I in a good relationship? Am I a good father? Am I a good son? Am I doing the right thing? Am I where I want to be? Which, when you're sitting in a Subaru at 9:15 in the morning,
maybe people don't want, it seems people don't want to see themselves in the movies anymore. They want to see Maverick, and they want to see Thor, and they want to see.
But they've always wanted that.
Potter.
They've always, I mean, look, as in this year, I'm sure there were movies, and yeah, this is before the big blockbusters and whatever took off. Both can be true, right? The one doesn't discount the other. I'm not saying we can't have roller coaster rides, and I'm not saying we can't.
Yeah, there was
have...
Flash Gordon, and there was
I fucking loved Flash Gordon when I was a kid. Oh my god, it was like one of my favorite movies. It might have been like the first.
Wait,
It's
are you
not the
talking about
first.
the cheesy Flash Gordon with the soundtrack by Queen?
Flash, he saved every one of us. That one, yeah, brilliant.
I was so scary to me when I was a
No,
kid.
come on, that's a
Yeah.
comedy.
Is it?
What
I was
you
at my
must-
friend Candace's birthday party, and we went to go see it, and it was very upsetting. I'm sure if I saw it now, it's the campiest, most ridiculous thing in the world.
So you must watch it again, because the idea that anyone could have been scared by that movie.
Okay, well, first of all,
That's
when I say
comedy.
Flash Gordon, I'm talking about the black and white serials of the 30s or whatever. You know, the Buck Rogers, and again, not the 80s Buck Rogers.
Oh, okay.
But you know, I'm talking about the stuff that influenced Indiana Jones and everything. The
Yeah.
black and white. Go to the Nickelodeon and get your
yeah, like the old westerns.
About the being scared thing, because this is also something that, because we talked last week about my being afraid of the movies, and I think it is related to me being afraid of Flash Gordon. I mean, there's just a distinction between scared of, oh no, don't go into that house, the killer is in that house, that kind of scare, which I'm not a huge fan of a lot of tension like that in movies. But it's just the going to the movie. It's the idea of like, I'm here sitting on the sofa, or even just like turn on the TV and start something new, where there's uncertainty and there's an emotional anxiety about going into that space.
But there's an old Hitchcock line about how, think about the little girl in her crib, and the dad comes along and like creeps up and goes boo like this, and the girl squeals in delight and terror, and he's like, that's in us from the very, very, very beginning. And he's like, that's really all I'm doing, is I'm the daddy coming along and going woo, basically. And I think that you have some deficiency in you where you don't like that game.
Well, I've said this before, you laugh, but I think I'm
Oh God, here we go.
Too empathetic.
Folks, James Levino is just too good, too advanced a human being.
It's not advanced. It's not advanced. I don't.
Human being 2.0, the empath version.
I don't say it in that way at all. Obviously, it is a deficiency of some kind.
You don't have
No, I just mean I don't have, somehow the wiring is in such a way where I can't create the appropriate emotional distance,
right,
to be delighted by daddy coming up to the crib. I'm only terrified. Yet I don't think I move through life as somebody who's afraid of new experiences. Am I?
Well, but this accounts for a lot of the time you stay in your house, I think.
I like being in my house, and I like being on my own. I mean,
there you go. Then you're answering your own question.
But what I've realized is that relationships and contact and connection are kind of everything.
That was spoken like the algorithm. Okay, must say here, must include human element.
No, I like, the thing is, I feel offended when I want to go to a show and it doesn't start till like 8.
Oh God.
You know, or 8:30, or like you go like, oh
God,
there's 2 opening bands, and they're not even gonna, the people I want to go see, you know, whoever it is, doesn't come on stage.
Are you there to get it over with? I don't like.
Well, I think no. I mean, kind of. No, I'm not there to get it. No. I'm not there to get it over with. No, when I want to go see the Bad Plus or Radiohead or whoever it is, I want to go see them. But I don't want Radiohead to take the stage at 10 o'clock. Like, I want Radiohead to take the stage at 7:30.
Oh my God, that's vulgar. 7:30.
Well, what's the difference?
Early bird special.
What's the difference? I don't like getting there and then I got to wait for 2.5 hours waiting for somebody. The War on Drugs played this like friends and family, like sound check kind of show here over Christmas. They were doing a couple of benefit shows at a tiny venue with fits 200 people in it. And I got there and Charlie, the drummer, friend of mine, said, be there by 7. We'll probably go on at 7. Got there at 7. They didn't start until after 9.
That's right.
But after 7:15, I sequestered myself in a corner of the balcony and literally didn't talk to anyone for an hour and a half.
What?
Because, well, partly because I was avoiding COVID, and it turned out that many people did get COVID from that show. But
you still haven't had COVID, right?
I have not had it.
You're the only person, and this is why, because you're an antisocial motherfucker.
I guess I am antisocial, but it's not that I want to get it over with, but we should wrap up soon. Our time here is almost, I have to get good at saying this. What's my line? It's like, okay, we'd have just a few minutes left and we need to start wrapping up. Or I would say like, what are the things that you would want to take away from the session today? But maybe something to bring up next time is the impulse to want it all over. I don't just mean life, although there is a kind of eschatological vein in a lot of mainstream religion, which does just want it to all be over. Bring on the brimstone and bring an end to this veil of tears. But you had talked about, I think it was Jeff Dyer who said like the relief when you're at the poetry reading or something and you hear like, I've only got one or two left. Yeah.
He says the thing you'd rather hear is I've only got one more, but apparently the agreed upon number is two. Oh, there goes the street sweeper cleaning up the middle of the street. Fantastic. Did you hear him?
I did not hear him. All right. Well, our time is almost at a close now. Like this conversation, I definitely want to be over. So, all right, movies from 1975. You ready? Here are a few movies from 1975 that I have not seen. Are you ready? Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
I really don't have any interest in it. When I was a kid, they would do the midnight screenings at the TLA on South Street of that, and it was, it was still kind of a present, relevant thing and whatever. But I don't know. Okay, so that's one. Jeanne Dielman, which was just voted the best movie of all time by the Sight and Sound poll.
We could definitely talk about that. I can't promise I'll watch it again.
This is going to be a tough year for me. The next one is Pasolini's Salo.
Okay.
All I know about that one is they eat shit at one point. I don't.
120 Days of Sodom.
Yeah. So that's going to be some heavy lifting.
Okay.
A movie I'm sure that will delight you. The Return of the Pink Panther.
Brilliant. The Blake Edwards, the Peter Sellers.
Yeah. Return of the Pink. And the last one is another Nicholson movie, The Passenger, Antonioni.
Ooh, that's a good movie. That's a very good movie. Very strange movie. I would say of those, The Passenger or Jeanne Dielman. I mean, Jeanne Dielman, we could definitely do because of the current, its current thing. I'm not sure I could watch it again.
Well, since we didn't do Amarcord, which is Fellini, and we did Nicholson, maybe another Nicholson is the thing. Compare and contrast.
All right.
Do people care about Rocky Horror anymore?
No, I mean, it's just like, yeah, exactly. It's got a very specific place.
Sometime we'll have to talk about your feelings about musicals.
Anytime you like.
And how you feel like nobody actually likes musicals.
It's impossible. It's a conspiracy.
Well, I'll save that for another time.
Okay.
Maybe there's a musical somewhere in the 80s or 90s that I haven't seen.
Oh, it's 10:01. I'm sitting here like a twat. I don't even need to. Let's cut this short.
All right. So wait. So The Passenger?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You're going to watch it. I'm going to watch it.
Sounds good.
See you next week.
Bye.
And that's that. Next time we talk about Michelangelo Antonioni's 1975 movie, The Passenger. And yes, it's actually from 1975. This one is a little hard to find. At the time of recording, the only streaming services that were showing it were Tubi and Vudu. But check it out if you have a chance. It's Jack Nicholson in his prime, but a movie that not very many people have seen. Okay, see you next time.